Hello, folks. My name is Detroit Miracle / Corey Gerard, and I like to welcome you all to Monster Wars Battles. In this episode, you will all see and hear the goddess Golden Fairy Lanae Pervy fighting the new god of apocalypse called Darkseid. Yes, so sit back and enjoy. Now a sky darkness is seen, and then the words Monster Wars are shown in the black of air. Then a dark hooded figure comes into view from below as it walks down Michigan Avenue near Martin in Detroit. Now a close-up shows that the person wearing a hood also has on sunglasses, and it's a woman. So this lady turns and heads for a left alleyway. The ground appears to be wet like it rained on this night. Then suddenly a guy steps out of the alley to greet this mystery gal and says, "We usually don't get fairies around here." So the hooded girl replies, "Then lucky for you," as heard saying so. She next lifts her hood and removes her sunglasses while stepping in the alley. Now Lanae Pervy is shown, who's also known as the Golden Fairy. Lanae then says, "Well, if it isn't James Keller, and still up to your scheming, no doubt." Then James replies, "Well, if I wasn't a schemer, then you wouldn't have much use for me." Then Lanae responds by saying, "Right you are, Jimmy," as seen doing so. Next, Lanae is shown reaching into a coat pocket and pulls out a hologram emitter. Then James says, "Oh, the pretty lady has bought me a present. I knew this was my lucky night." Lanae then activates her palm-sized device, and then a strange item appears in the hologram emission as a smiling James looks on. The scene next goes up to the higher sky and shows Lanae and James from a downward view as the hologram image turns around. Now the motion is seen coming close to them. Lanae now says, "James, I want you to check your sources and find out everything you can about this nightmare maker." So James replies, "You say you got this thing out of a dream, then can I borrow it to make me a wet dream instead of a scary one?" Lanae next responds, "If this machine is mass produced, then nightmare dangers will increase as well." Now James Keller replies, "Then I'll find out whatever I can." Then Lanae says, "Good, and consider this a down payment." She's now seen handing James a small pouch, which is shown to have gems in it. James Keller is an associate of Lanae Pervy because he's tied to the supernatural underworld, which makes him ideal for getting info regarding the unnatural type. Now, so suddenly, a type of wind is heard just feet away from the Golden Fairy and James. So Lanae is shown walking towards it as James puts the gems in his pocket. Then out of nowhere, an energy tunnel opens in front of Lanae, and its light shines on her light golden skin, while the strange winds blow through her blonde curly hair. Then James also walks to the wind and circular tunnel and says, "Hey, fairy friend, did you make that?" Lanae is next seen shaking her head no. Then suddenly a tall, bulky creature is shown exiting that light tunnel in front of Lanae, and he has red, fiery eyes. Lanae then quickly ignites her gold flaming eyes, and then the tall monstrosity says, "Hello, Queen Fairy, I am Darkseid." So Lanae replies, "What do you want?" as shown asking that. Darkseid then responds by saying, "I have need of you now, so come." He next walks back through that tunnel as Lanae replies, "I'm not going anywhere with you." Now James is heard saying, "Yeah, you handled that monster well, and I was about to blacken his red eyes." Then all of a sudden, Lanae is seen being pulled through that same portal by its attaching energy. Now James grabs onto her and is taken through as well, much like Darkseid and the Golden Fairy. Then Lanae, Pervy, and James Keller are seen arriving on the planet Apocalypse, and then that portal called a boom tube closes up behind them. This part of Apocalypse looks like an industrialized terror with a large fire pit just up ahead. Then the god Darkseid is seen standing near two of his female furies named Lashina and Mad Harriet. Now the Golden Fairy appears to be angry and her eyes are flaming mad. But her friend James has a frightened look on his face. Lanae then says, "I'll make you regret bringing us here." Now the Fury Lashina begins to swing her electric whip and replies, "Yes, more fun time." Then the Fury Mad Harriet replies, "Can I scratch your back?" and then shows metal claws on her gloves. Darkseid now says, "Welcome, Queen Fairy, and I hope my world isn't too disturbing, but it does get worse." So Fairy Lanae replies, "Oh, but me and my fairies have vanquished scarier nightmares than you and this place." Now Darkseid responds by saying, "Oh, but I am not a mere nightmare, nor is this place." James Keller next says, "Hey, big fella, do you have any liquor stores around here? 'Cause I could use a beer and a big bag of Doritos." Then everyone looks at James and Mad Harriet laughs. The Golden Fairy then changes into her caped costume and next flames her hair too, as shown doing so. She then replies, "Don't worry, James, we'll be home in no time." Now the Fury Lashina is seen swinging her whip. James then says, "Then let's get the hell out of here because this place looks worse than Detroit slums." Now Lashina and Harriet both laugh out loud. Lanae then says, "If you don't let us go, Big Ugly, I'll blast you and your two bimbos to dust." Darkseid then ignites his fiery eyes to the fullest and replies, "Oh, I think not." He then shoots Lanae with his Omega laser eyes as seen doing so. Now the Golden Fairy struggles as Darkseid's Omega beams stun her. Then James Keller pushes Lanae out of the way, but her connection to the Omega effect shocks James and he falls down. Now Darkseid turns off his eye rays and the Golden Fairy is seen in a knelt knee position without her flaming hair and fiery eyes. Darkseid then says, "Furies, take this Earth comedian away and give him an unpleasant tour." So the two Furies reply, "Yes, my lord." And Lashina also says, "And my other sisters will help see to his discomfort." Then Mad Harriet picks James up and flies away with him after she activated her flight boots. Lashina is shown flying near them as James is heard saying, "Yeah, I'm a ladies' man now." Next, James unclips Mad Harriet's mother box and then puts it in his coat pocket. No one saw him do it because he's sneaky. Darkseid is now shown walking over to the golden fairy. As she stands to her feet, the evil lord then says, "Well, Queen Lanae, are you ready to talk now?" So Lanae makes an angry facial and says, "Oh, I'm all better." She then flames her hair and eyes again and fires explosive energy around Darkseid, which surrounds him in a distractive way as seen doing so. She then shoots Darkseid in his chest with fairy energy that came out of her hands. Now he is shown backing up. Darkseid then yells enough and then hurls an energy cage around Lanae, which he created with his hand. She then oozes fairy energy through that cage and it attaches to Darkseid's face and blinds him. Next, the cage that trapped the golden fairy has now disappeared. This fairy's hair and eyes aren't flaming at the moment. Lanae then flies behind Darkseid and wraps her light string cord around his neck as he removes that fairy cover from his face. Lanae is now seen angrily strangling Darkseid as he says, "So you like to play rough, fairy queen?" Then Lanae replies, "Let my friend go and release us from this cursed slum." Darkseid then grabs Lanae from behind him and throws her in front. He then points his right hand and creates two rock creatures which stand on both sides of her. These monsters then grab Lanae by her shoulders as shown doing so. Then Lanae fires fairy rays at Darkseid from out of her eyes, but he blocks them with his left hand and smiles. Darkseid then says, "Your powers are no match for mine." So Lanae replies, "Well, you've got me beat at ugly." Then Darkseid makes an angry facial and fires his Omega beams at Lanae that came from his eyes. Well, folks, stay tuned for part 2 of this epic story battle.